Hello, welcome to Current Condition Late Night, your new favorite show. I am Bethany Ruhe, and I am joined by Allegheny County Council Member at Large Bethany Hallam and political analyst and operative Miss Erin McClelland. Hello, ladies. How are we doing today?
Hello. Good evening. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. So this is going to be our new half-hour show that we're going to do every week, and we're going to be tackling hot topics, current events, and whatever else we feel like talking about. If anybody out there is familiar with Erin and Bethany, and I'm sure you are, you know they have a lot to say. I'm going to do my best to keep it under 30 minutes because the Zoom will cut us off after that. So I do want to give a big thanks to our episode 1 sponsor, Emily Kincaid, for State Rep District 20. So thank you, Emily, and her campaign for believing in us before you even saw it. Hope you don't regret it by the time we're done. No, I'm just kidding. And also, I want to, today's National Nurses Day. Obviously, frontline workers are literally risking their lives to take care of people. So on this day and every day, thank you to all of our frontline workers, especially nurses, on your special day. Without further ado, I'm just going to jump in, y'all. Topic 1 today, there's this little thing going on, you might have heard of it, called the quarantine. How are we dealing with it? Erin, we'll start with you. How's it going over there?
Well, I mean, obviously, we're still seeing, we're hitting the marks, the initial marks that the CDC put out, where we're getting close to, they estimated around 100,000 deaths and between 1 to 2.5 million people infected. So we're at 70,000. We're getting about 10,000 deaths a week. So we're going to probably hit that number and then some. So those estimates are proving to be pretty accurate. Pennsylvania doesn't seem to be slowing down. So this is still very, very serious. But on the other hand, you have a lot of small businesses that this makes absolutely no sense to. So for instance, where I live in Allegheny County, right now you have the local Walmart open and the superstores are open and people are running around like they're on vacation in there, and no masks, no safety gear. And yet the little cigar shop across the street from me that has never had more than 2 people in it when I've been in there has to be closed. Or the local medicine shop, which is a local pharmacy, has to be closed. And I think the big gripe, the big mistake with all of this is that we allow these superstores and corporate magnates to stay open, and we told the small business, but you have to go home. And it makes absolutely no sense to the average person, because I'm driving by and I see these superstores and there's 200 cars in the parking lot, there's people running around everywhere, and yet the small businesses are the ones that are being told to stay home. So I think eventually people were just going to throw in the towel. They were going to start going out because it's not making any sense to them. And I think the smart thing would have been to implement rules about how many people can be in a business, masks immediately, which would have been hard because Donald Trump sent all of our masks to China, so we didn't have any. And that was sort of a big problem. But that's where we're getting backlash. So it's not so much people denying that there's an epidemic or an issue. It's them saying this isn't fair, and it wasn't done properly.
Yeah, and now, Bethany, I just saw your tweet come through. I know you've been keeping a running tally on the impacted Allegheny County in terms of how many people are infected and how many deaths we've had. And I know, too, you've been really vocal about what's going on in incarceration situations, alternative housing. So what are you seeing from your perspective? Where do you think we are right now?
So I agree with a lot of what Erin said, but also because I've seen, again, small businesses who have already announced that they're not reopening, that they're not able to financially make it through the stay-at-home order. And then, like Erin said, I drive past the Target or a Walmart and it is packed. And so that's a concern. But to me, we have a lot of our local elected leaders who are asking for us to transition to the yellow phase, to put us on that next batch of starting to reopen. But my biggest concern is that until we have widespread testing for our most vulnerable populations, which I define as nursing homes, our Allegheny County Jail, alternative housing facilities, until we have the capacity to test all of those folks, we shouldn't be talking about reopening. So that's my concern. It's kind of a balance between we want to support our small businesses and we want to make sure everybody's safe and able to. But if we reopen too quickly, I'm afraid that we're going to be in this exact same situation again in the fall and maybe again in the spring. And so it's not a solution. Testing is the solution.
Yeah, so what do you guys think? And I'll flip this back to Erin for her thoughts. So I was actually, obviously we had a gorgeous day over the weekend. We went to Deer Lakes Park to go on a hike, and we had our masks, and we wore our masks to the trailhead until we were completely alone, which was blissful. But literally nobody else had on a mask. Nobody was socially distancing. Erin, how do you think you go about enforcing this? Because, to Bethany's point, if we don't do this right, we're just going to find ourselves in this situation.
Yeah, we are not a country that is built or equipped to police its own. We are not built for this. One of the fundamental arguments that you see any constitutionalists or any self-declared patriot go with is liberty. And we are a nation that has decided, and people have publicly and regularly said so of a lot of elected officials, people will die, but we're not going to sacrifice liberty to prevent that. That's a choice that we made as a society a long time ago. Now, a lot of people say that these shutdowns and these restrictions are not constitutional. That is absolutely untrue. We have a history since the 1800s of our Supreme Court ruling in the interest of public health when pandemics and infectious disease becomes a problem. You think about back in the days, right now our biggest health issue is mostly nutritionally induced problems like diabetes and heart disease. But 100 years ago, we were dealing with things like cholera and malaria and things like that. So we were used to those kind of problems back then. And, regular shutdowns and quarantines were a part of life. The Supreme Court did rule that on certain clauses in the Constitution that you are able to do that, and they are legally allowed to do that. So anybody that says this is not constitutional is absolutely wrong. Just haven't really seen it in 100 years. So it's not part of our constitutional reality today, but I think moving forward, it's going to be. It absolutely is going to be. But we're never going to stand for this. And I think after mid-May, I imagine that we're probably going to get closer to reopening. I don't think it's a good idea, but all you can do is be as safe as you possibly can. I think we are looking at a new normal. People like you, Bethany, that have children. Mine's 19 now, so he's kind of on his own, but you're going to be wanting your kids to stay at home. You're going to be spending more time in the backyard. You're going to be making your shopping trips with a mask on once a week. And I think that's the reality.
I mean, how do we enforce this, right? I mean, we can't make our police officers enforce it. How do we work on, getting to a place where it is safe to reopen again?
Yeah, I mean, because that's a concern as well, especially when we're talking about the petri dish that is our jails, right? And so I just read a story out of Erie County where a woman was a confirmed case of COVID-19. She signed a document stating she understood that she was to quarantine for at least 14 days. And she was out going to parties, going to the bank, going to grocery stores, and they arrested her and threw her in jail. And so now she's at home on house arrest, but still, what could have happened in that time that she went into the jail? Could she have brought that into the jail? Could she, so that's a concern of mine as well. So I don't really know the answer as far as policing, because as I'm sure most of you know about me, I am not a big fan of police just patrolling the streets and throwing people in jail for walking in the streets. To me, that sounds like a horrible solution. And so I think it's really incumbent upon us as a community, right? This is really community focused, that it's on us. If you see a friend who was a confirmed case, who isn't following the quarantine guidelines, don't let them come to your party. You shame them, screenshot their Snapchats of them out and about and tell on them. I mean, really, I think that it is our job to show folks that we're not going to tolerate this, that if you're supposed to be in quarantine, you should be in quarantine. When you see your neighbors having a party, don't call the police. Go over and yell at them, grab a bullhorn and ruin their party. I don't care what you do. But I think when we start to involve the police in situations such as this, that leads to a rise in mass incarceration, which we already have an issue as it is. We already have jails across the country who are not doing any testing, who are trying to minimize the amount of cases that they have in their jail. And so, unfortunately, policing is not the answer.
Well, and you look at what happened in Austin, right? I don't know if you guys saw this on a police officer or a park ranger, but it's still, person of authority, got pushed into a lake just for asking people to, just socially distant. And then I know this isn't a police officer, but that guy in Dollar General, the security guard there, got shot and killed. I mean, people, I don't think react well to being told they have to do it. And Erin, like you said earlier, we're not a society that's ever gonna do, gonna stand for that. So Bethany, so let's say we do test everybody in the jails, right? Like then what? Like what's the outcome if we're able to do that? Because I know that's something you've been really passionate about.
Yeah, definitely. So being able to put folks who need to stay in jail in single cells is going to be the big thing, right? So the entire mentality behind releasing people from the jail, which was a push of ours over the past few months and we're still pushing for now, is so that there are empty cells for each person who needs to be incarcerated to be able to have a single cell, right? So normally, for people who don't know, there are at least 2 people per cell. There's 6 by 8 foot cells where you sleep, use the toilet, sometimes do your laundry in the sink, eat your meals in that cell. So you cannot socially distance in a 6 foot by 8 foot cell with 2 people. So the whole mentality was to spread everybody out and keep everybody in quarantine, okay? And so instead what happened is they released all those folks from the Allegheny County Jail and then shut down entire levels of the jail and squished everybody together. So we actually have more people per pod in the jail now than we had before the releases started. So that's really the solution, is to, you know, let people out and make space so that anybody who needs to stay in the jail, anybody who is a confirmed case, is able to quarantine and isn't having to do so with another non-confirmed case in their cell with them.
Okay. Well, obviously this is impacting things across the board. Erin, I'm going to flip it back to you for a minute because we happen to have some elections coming up. How do you see some changes? How has it already impacted some things that you've seen, like in terms of campaigning and things like that? How are people dealing with it on that end?
Yeah, I mean, it's completely changed the campaign structure because up until this moment, even though media was always a huge issue, you were seeing more and more of a grassroots swell after the Trump election. So you saw a lot more door knocking, a lot more activism at the grassroots level, and that is absolutely gone. And I think that, I mean, the Democrats have an opportunity this fall. It is going to be a heavy lift because we need the Rust Belt. That is where this election is won and lost. I don't know that we have that locked up yet. But if we don't start telling people what we stand for instead of just running around screaming about what we won't stand for, I don't think we pull this out. And I'm not really impressed with any of the campaigns that we're seeing because you're not seeing people really capturing an aggressive social media stance, a lot of video. I mean, Bethany, you and I have talked about the opportunities. Everybody's home. There's an opportunity to put some video out there to really discuss things. There's a deterioration in phone contact of candidates. You know, when I ran back in 2014, you were on the phone for 180 phone calls a day. And now getting candidates on the phone is just unbelievably rare. So the shift that we saw after Trump in campaigns is unbelievably disservicing candidates right now because the environment they're in, they really have to go back to some grassroots profile building, solid messaging, earned media, and we're not seeing any of that. In the past 4 years, that's really been destroyed, and I'm really shocked at how badly all of these campaigns are doing on that, with the exception of Donald Trump right now.
Well, that's saying something. Speaking of campaigns, I do want to take another opportunity to thank our sponsor, Emily Kincaid, for state rep for District 20. So thank you again, Emily, and your campaign. And now I'm going to transition that into our second topic of the day, which is specifically not just campaigns, but the elections themselves. So, you know, we've obviously seen how they're campaigning differently, but we're also going to be voting differently. Erin, do you want to start off, like how it's going to look when we're voting now?
Yeah, you know, Bethany and I have talked a lot about this, and we see it from different perspectives. But, you know, I have a lot of empathy for where our elected officials are right now because nobody wants to be the county executive that gets people hurt or sick or deceased after Election Day. And so what Allegheny County has done is cut polling places, and we'll go to Bethany to talk more about that because she's been very involved in that. I think on the big picture end of it, I don't like that idea. It's not the way I would have gone. I think what we should be working for is leaving the polls open as they were, but pushing mail-in voting, pushing as aggressively as possible. So there's as few people at those polls as possible, but disenfranchising voters that do need to show up in the polls those days because they forgot or it was a last-minute decision. I don't think that's a good idea. And I think reducing those polling places so you actually have more people at the poll versus what you would have normally had is a really, really bad idea. I think our ultimate goal should be, yes, to encourage mail-in voting, but we should never suppress vote. We should never disenfranchise voters. We start getting into things like cutting polling places, polling taxes. I mean, this is some old school stuff. And as Democrats, we just don't believe in that. So I think you can do both. You can cut activity at those polling places, aggressively advocate for mail-in voting, out suppressing voters, or making it more dangerous by increasing the density of people that have to go to a single poll place by cutting those opportunities.
Okay, and now Bethany, I thought I heard you might have some thoughts on this. Do you want to? I just have a suspicion.
Oh.
I know. So Bethany, why don't you jump in here? What do you think?
Every time people bring this up, it just, I mean, my face turns red. I am so angry.
You're red right now. You're hulking out.
I am so angry about, what Erin just mentioned. I mean, we are seeing voter suppression on a widespread scale in Allegheny County. We want to see COVID-19 testing on a widespread scale, but instead it's voter suppression, right? And so, in a Democrat-controlled county where we are supposed to be the party about eliminating obstacles for voters, we are supposed to be the party about making it safe for folks to go and vote and removing anything that's in their way from being able to participate in our democracy and cast their vote for any election that they want to, right? Any election that they're eligible. And so I'm just so upset with the consolidation plan that Erin referenced. So like a little background, Act 12, which the legislature passed earlier this year, allowed counties to consolidate polling locations up to 60%. Okay, so now in Allegheny County, we have 1,323 precincts, okay? So 60% would be like 600, okay? So we'd have 600 polling locations.
Wait, let me jump in here. What was the underlying rationale for doing that? Was it COVID-19, or was this something that was in the works? Like, if somebody's listening to this show, which hopefully everybody is, and they knew nothing about this, like, what was the rationale behind even doing this in the first place?
It was COVID-19. So Act 77 was passed last year before the COVID-19 pandemic. Act 77 is what allowed us in Pennsylvania for the first time ever to have no excuse mail-in voting. So we are so lucky that we even have that opportunity. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of people who don't feel comfortable voting by mail. And I think it's great that people now have the opportunity to do so. But also, I respect people's choice to want to show up and vote at their poll on election day. For a lot of people, I mean, myself included, I like to go and see who's standing outside, which candidates are there asking for their support. I see a lot of my neighbors at my polls. I've worked my polls every election since I was old enough to vote. And it's just kind of like a ceremonial thing of going to cash out on election day. So what the Board of Elections, which I'm a member of, it's myself, the other at-large county councilman, Sam DeMarco, who is a Republican, and then our county executive, Rich Fitzgerald, who I'm pretty sure is a registered Democrat. They are the other ones on our Board of Elections. And so what the proposal was to consolidate our polling locations 90% from 1,323 down to 138. So what that did is it says one polling place per municipality and then one per each of the 9 city council districts. That's where the 138 number comes from. So
what about the fact that municipalities are wildly different in terms of how big they are and how many people they have? Like, how does that address that?
Exactly, it doesn't. What it does is it suppresses voters, right? So it tells people that that they have to show up in a municipality such as Penn Hills that has over 50,000 registered voters, and then we have a place like Wall that has a few hundred registered voters. We have, again, back to Penn Hills, 20 square miles in area for all of those folks to come together and travel to one polling location. And then we have a place like Westview, which is 1 square mile for people to travel. And so it was left up to the municipalities, the local borough councils, to decide what location they think is best. Now remember, the schools don't want polling locations there because they don't want the cleanup effort after. A lot of churches have said the same things. So at the end of the day, it comes down to municipal buildings, which I don't know how many municipal buildings you guys have been in, but there's ones that you can barely fit 5 people during normal times. And now you're going to have those poor pool workers who are risking their health and well-being on on election day to help voters participate in our democracy, instead of them coming into contact with a few hundred voters, you then have thousands of voters that they're coming in contact with, not to mention the lines, people with small children, elderly folks showing up to vote. And how do they get there? We could have people driving 20, 25 minutes to get to their polling location when they're used to walking out their front door and going down the street and voting. So it's a big concern to me. Again, I thought the Democrats were the party of enfranchising voters, not disenfranchising. And so I'm really upset. I mean, it's something that I'm scared to see on election day, to be completely honest. You know, we have secured PPE for the poll workers, and we have enough. We have 6,500 sets of PPE for poll workers. And so, you know, we're taking precautions. I had somebody recommend to me recently that we do like a dry run and have some people from the health department potentially come and see how we plan to process elections on election day, and kind of let us know where our strengths and weaknesses are so that we can make it as safe as we possibly can. But again, at the end of the day, as much as we push mail-in voting, and as much as we should continue to do that, we still are going to have folks who want to show up and vote, and we need to make sure that it's safe and, most importantly, equitable for them to do so.
So now let me throw something that's more theoretical at you, and then I'll flip it over to Erin for her thoughts. Why would they want to suppress votes? What would be some reasons, either that you think or that you know, or that just, you know, your garden variety voter suppression rationale? You know, what's the net benefit to doing that if that is your goal, to suppress votes?
Yeah, so as much as I don't think it was as malicious as I sometimes feel the decision was, I truly think that what it was just a lack of planning, right? So there's so much going on, and we know that all of our elected leaders in Allegheny County and beyond are dealing with a global pandemic for the first time since they've been in office, right? And so there's a lot of other things that I think took a priority to election day. And I also believe that not everyone realized, hey, we're going to move election day and that's going to make it safer. But yet here we are a few weeks away from election day and we're still in a stay-at-home order. So I truly believe that it was just, hey, we'll be fine as long as we change election day. And now we're not. And so it was scrambling to make a plan. So instead of an equitable plan that took into account population of a municipality, area of a municipality, and how many people are expected to turn up and vote, like what's their usual projected voter turnout. Instead of taking any of those factors into consideration, you know, our Board of Elections decided, hey, we're just going to blanket statement, treat them all equal, and we'll just hope this works.
So it's more like the unintended consequences sort of thing.
Exactly. As it was something that was on the back burner as opposed to in the forefront where it should have been. Because remember, the people who are making the decisions right now on how we're handling COVID-19, you get to choose who they are by going to vote on election day. So to me, this is one of the priorities that we should have had from the beginning, is making sure that people were able to vote on election day, whether it's in person or by mail. And so, you know, I commend the county for sending out mail-in ballot applications to everyone. I think that's a big help. But we had to have a better plan for how we were consolidating polling locations, because in normal times, we shouldn't have 1,323 precincts in Allegheny County. So that's something we need to address at a later date as well.
Okay. And now, Erin, I'll flip it over to you. I mean, do you see anything malicious driving this, or do you kind of agree with Bethany? It was just sort of scramble out with a plan that might not have been ideal.
No, I honestly don't think there's any, I don't think most of our elected officials are acting in anything else other than absolute fear and concern for what's happening. I really have a lot of empathy for at least the ones that I've talked to. And I don't think any of them are saying that they want to suppress vote, especially when you're in a Democratic county. I think they genuinely don't want to be the person at the helm of an outbreak that's caused by bad election day policy. And there is no wise old man on this. There's no playbook. We have never seen this in the past 100 years. A, because our CDC was properly run and we've stopped 100% of these outbreaks from coming onto domestic soil. We can get into the failures.
It's very recently. That's so odd.
Isn't that strange? So no, I have the utmost empathy for what these elected officials are going through. They have no wise old man. There's no playbook. They are trying to figure this out, and they are making really, really tough decisions right now about how they are going to save lives and protect people when a lot of people are acting against their own best interest on this one. So no, I don't think there's anything Machiavellian at all. I think it's true concern for the human condition here.
Yeah, and you're right, there's absolutely no framework for this, right? I mean, we see what happened in Wisconsin, right, where they didn't move election day, they kept it, and it was sort of a hot mess, right? So, if that's like the one example that our leaders could look at, well, I think that by and large, that's universally agreed that did not work very well for Wisconsin, but there's no success story to emulate. So
It worked for Democrats, though.
Yeah. Okay, I shouldn't say it didn't work for everybody. I was more talking about as a voter. Yeah, I was talking about as a voter being in line for 8 hours in the cold and the rain and getting the COVID and the whatnot.
A special thank you to our sponsor for our inaugural episode, Emily Kincaid, candidate for State Representative District 20. Emily, thank you so much for being with us here today. Yeah, so I know now is a tough time for campaigns. As Erin and I were talking about earlier, it is a different time right now. And so I just want to start off by asking you, how is the campaign going? And especially, I think our viewers would love to hear, how are you finding ways to be creative with your campaign and reach out to voters, especially during this time of quarantine?
Yeah, so it's, I continually say it's like campaigning in a foreign language. I am not going to know how to run for re-election if I actually win. I have not gotten those skills to run a normal campaign. But we're like phone banking every day. We're talking to voters every day. We're really trying to prioritize making sure that people know about mail-in balloting, and also that they know that their polling locations are being consolidated. And we started doing a Monday meet and greet, so people can submit questions, silly or serious, and ask me, and I will answer them live on camera. And there's no editing involved. They just get, my genuine reaction to whatever the question is. You asked me on a Monday meet and greet, why I don't like pineapples? So I will answer any question.
Just going to thank you for answering one of my questions. So I appreciate that very much. So I know that you're challenging an incumbent, which is something that I'm familiar with as well. He's from a well-established political family. That name recognition is out there. What challenges are you facing going against an establishment political family?
So one of the biggest challenges that I've run into is that a lot of the endorsements that he has received have come from organizations and individuals who haven't given me the time of day. These are organizations that just automatically endorsed him, wouldn't pick up my phone calls, wouldn't return my phone calls, and most of his money is also coming from institutional funds. Like, if you look at his finance report, he's got, maybe one or two individuals that are actually contributing to his campaign. And our race is, majority funded by individual contributions. And I'm really proud of that. Our average contribution is less than $80, but we're still in this race. And what I'm also really proud of is the fact that we have, I've consistently been the challenger that when he seeks an endorsement and he doesn't get it, I'm the only challenger that ends up getting an endorsement over an incumbent. I was endorsed by the conservation voters. I was endorsed by Young Democrats of Allegheny County. I was endorsed by a lot of these organizations that traditionally have gone to incumbents, and like Stonewall Democrats, I was the only challenger that it was endorsed over an incumbent who also sought the endorsement. So I'm really proud of that, but it's really hard because when people don't pick up your phone calls and they just decide you're not worth it, the Allegheny County Democratic Committee, as you're well familiar with, is really problematic. We were shut out of that endorsement. He got 101 votes to our 11 votes, and it was because people wouldn't return my phone calls. They wouldn't pick up my phone calls. We've got Trump supporters on the committee who voted for him and have been supporting him. And one of the most frustrating things was there were a couple people who were appointed to committee in time to vote, and the committee told me that we could not know who it was that was being appointed. So I wasn't able to reach out to that person and even ask for their vote. So that kind of stuff is really frustrating, because it's like the Democratic Party is opposed to democracy in some ways, and that's really frustrating.
Yeah, I've read some national coverage about the Allegheny County Democratic Committee recently as well, in the Washington Post and other outlets. So it is a very interesting situation, to say the least, but I'm not here to talk about that. So I'd like to go on to my next question that I have for you. You know, we see that District 20 where you're running, it's shall we use the term gerrymandered? It is shaped in a way that doesn't make sense to a lot of people. So I know you have some strong views on gerrymandering and the way that we decide the boundaries of congressional districts and state house districts. And so I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit about reforming the way that that's done, the process for deciding the districts, the legislative districts.
Yeah, absolutely. District 20 is a weird district. It stretches up, into Ross and all the way down to Polish Hill, Lawrenceville, through the north side. And it's weird in the sense that it's sort of a good gerrymander and a bad gerrymander, because it's good in the sense that it wraps around District 19 to give more power to majority Black neighborhoods, so that they can vote together as a voting block. But it also divides up the power of Ross between 20 and 21. And that's intentional. It's intentional to split up that power. Adam Ravenstahl voted for he broke with the Democrats and voted for this redistricting bill in 2011. And it's really hurt the ability of Ross to get the kind of representation that it needs, and it also makes it hard for other folks across the state. Part of it was ruled unconstitutional under our state constitution, and he voted for that. And we need to actually establish an independent redistricting commission, because it can't be the state legislature that is deciding who their voters are. I've spent over a decade working on gerrymandering reform issues, and independent redistricting commissions are the best way to make sure that everybody's vote is counted, and that it's not elected officials who are choosing their voters.
Great. That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear your perspective on that, because it is important. A lot of people don't understand why they vote in the district they vote for, why their state representative is who it is. So it's important that people understand that is decided by your elected state representative. So make sure you choose the right person to have a say in that. So Emily, I want to thank you again. Let's say I give you 30 seconds to tell me, what is it that our viewers above all else need to know about you and your campaign for state representative?
I have spent over 15 years working on the issues that come up in Harrisburg. I have the work ethic and the experience to really make a difference, to get in and fight for you. And I will take that and get ready and be on the ground fighting for you on day one.
I can't wait. You want to give everybody your social media handle so they can follow along and how they can donate to your campaign?
Absolutely. You can go to Emily, the number 4, PA, the number 20.com, and that's my website. You can donate right on there, and you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, and the handle is at Emily4PA20. So it's across the board, Emily4PA20. As long as you remember that, you can find me anywhere.
Awesome. Thank you again. Thank you to our sponsor, Emily Kincaid, for State Representative District 20.
All right, so I'm going to give you guys each a minute. Bethany, I'm going to start with you. Just last words, last thoughts on this issue, or anything that's on your mind. And, well, not anything that's on your mind, Beth.
I'm going to say, okay. I just want to remind people that all politics is local, right? Don't get discouraged because there's not a contested presidential primary on your ballot on June 2nd. Please come out and vote, because all of these state representative races, our statewide auditor general, attorney general, treasurer, we have our congressional seats, we have some state senate seats. There are a lot of important races on your ballot right now. So please make sure that you check your voter registration status on votespa.com, and that is the most important thing. First of all, please go and check that. The county will be mailing every registered voter a mail-in ballot application tomorrow. Okay, so watch your mail for that in the coming days. And please, 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 if you feel comfortable doing so, vote by mail. You have until 1 week prior to the election to request your mail-in ballot. Please do that. And if not, make sure you pay attention to news from the county, news from your local municipality to find out where you are to go to vote on election day, because everyone is voting somewhere new with this new consolidation plan. So vote early, vote often, twice a year, every year. Make sure you get out and find a candidate you support and go make some phone calls for them.
God, I just wish you were more passionate, Bethany. You're such a wet noodle. All right, Erin, last words.
I think my big concern, we just got off Workers Week, International Workers Week. And the pressure that this is putting on our essential workers cannot be denied. We still have people saying this is a hoax. Today is National Nurses Day. Friday was Firefighters Day. These people put themselves in harm's way every day so we can stay home safe. They were always essential workers. It's time we start treating them that way. It's time that we start acknowledging unionization and its way forward. So that's something that I've been concerned about, is how this is affecting workers. If you are a candidate right now in Allegheny County or throughout the state, please do better. We need to hear from you. We need to see what you're doing. We need you making phone calls. We need you fighting. Get back to brass tacks. Get back to the old way. Start talking. Start building your profile, and start making an argument for yourself and what you do stand for, and not just what you won't stand for.
Yeah.
Again, I really wish that you could have a little bit more oomph when you said that, Erin.
I'm working on it.
All right, guys. I know. Well, that's why we're doing this, right? Current condition. We're here to talk about these things. We're here to break these things down. If there's something you want to hear us talk about, drop it in the comments. Send me an email, bethany@pittsburghcurrent.com. We're going to be doing this every week, whether you like it or not. So you might as well get involved. Again, I want to give a huge thanks to Emily Kincaid for State Rep for District 20. Thank you again for being our sponsor. Thank you again for our nurses. Thank you, Bethany Hallam. Thank you, Erin McClelland. And thank you, Jake, our omniscient producer. That's it, guys. It's a wrap. First episode in the books. And oh, look, my timer. That's our 30 minutes. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next Wednesday.